Welcome inside TCO Studios. I'm Tatum Everett, and this is Pick 6 presented by KFAN, your fan question show. Those questions are submitted via Twitter to my Twitter handle at Tatum Everett, and several of them had to do with the upcoming NFL Combine. We've got answers from guys like head coach Kevin O'Connell, media experts, but we are going to kick it off with the newest member of the Vikings coaching staff, new defensive coordinator Brian Flores. This question's from Bill. He asks, what is the number one thing you look for in a defensive prospect? Let's hear from Coach Flores.
Bill, the number one thing I'd like to see, well, there's several things, but the number one thing is the ability to just get off blocks. I don't know if you can really get that in the combine. They'll hit bags, but when you got a 300-pound guy trying to block you or trying to double team you, those things are tough to do. So, really all positions, D-line, linebackers, safeties, corners. I'm looking for guys to get off blocks, really get more of it off of game film. But you see some flashes of that in the combine, but that's my number one attribute I'm looking for.
This may be Coach Flores' first time at the Combine as a Vikings coach, but he has a long history of evaluating talent dating back to 2004 when he was a scouting assistant. Question number 2 comes from James in Chaska. He wants to know which position group should the Vikings be watching the closest. The Athletics Vikings beat writer Alec Lewis answers this one.
Great question, James. It's something I've thought a lot about. The easy answer, I think, would be cornerback, given obviously the players who are free agents, Patrick Peterson and Duke Shelley. The Vikings have a bunch of young guys in Andrew Booth Jr. and a Caleb Evans, but I think the answer I'm going to give right here is the interior of the defensive line. Dalvin Tomlinson is an unrestricted free agent. If you think about the Super Bowl and who had the most success, for the Chiefs it was Chris Jones in the middle. He's become a stalwart player for that team. And for the Eagles it was a guy like Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox, who the Eagles have had manning the interior for a long time. And so I think as this Vikings brass descends on the Combine in Indianapolis, the interior of the defensive line and players like Siaki Osaka from Baylor, other guys will be of interest for the Vikings. It could really help the defense as it looks to take a step forward next season.
Thanks for some names to watch, Alec. You can catch him on the current episode of the Minnesota Vikings podcast, which you can find at Vikings.com. Next question is from Maddie in Lauderdale. What will KOC do in the offseason to get away from football, if at all, to come in fresh for his sophomore season as head coach? Does getting out ahead of roster evaluation before Combine and draft allow for some time away? Well, Coach O'Connell, let's hear your answer.
That's a great question, Maddie. What I like to do is spend all of my time that I have away from coaching this team with my family. We now have 4 kids, added a baby girl named Callie during the football season, so I got a lot of time to catch up with her and make sure she knows exactly who Dad is. Haven't been around all that much through the end of the season, but very excited to be with my family, my kids, and especially my wife, Leah. All the sacrifice she puts in throughout the season. It's my turn now to come home, do some chores, be dad around the house, and make sure I'm taking care of those guys.
Coach O'Connell and the rest of the Vikings coaching staff have been hard at work preparing for the Combine, and you'll get a chance to hear from him as well as General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah next week at the Combine. Well, this next question from Jason kind of changes things up from the Combine. He asks, is wide receiver a priority in the draft or something we can fill via free agency or trade? Former NFL receiver and Fox 9 analyst Ron Johnson takes this one.
Hey, Jason, thanks for the question. Wide receiver in the NFL draft is going to be tough for the Minnesota Vikings for the simple fact they only have 4 picks right now. I know you can trade down, but I don't think wide receiver is a priority. When you think about Justin Jefferson, you think about KJ Osborne, possibly Adam Thielen coming back as well. I don't think it's a priority. You'll get a fully healthy Adam Thielen. We know he dealt with some injuries here and there, banged up. Again, when you would see him hit the ground, limp off the field, then come back maybe 10 plays later, something wasn't right through the season. season. So you'll get a fully healthy Adam Thielen next year. So with those 3 receivers, I think TJ Hockenson becomes more of a priority to me than a receiver. You look at Travis Kelce and you look at what the Chiefs did. I truly feel like that could be a Vikings scenario with TJ Hockenson. I would rather see them prioritize keeping TJ Hockenson over trying to draft or trade for another receiver. Justin Jefferson is going to require $19 million if he's tenured or his 5th-year option is picked up. If they sign him, you're looking at $30+ million for one receiver. So I don't think there's room to try to worry about another one.
Thank you, Ron, for the answer. We're going to move now to question number 5, and it's from Mr. Ham Dunkington. Love the Twitter handle. The question is, which cornerback are you the biggest fan of? So we got Vikings Entertainment Network's Gabe Henderson to take this one.
Loose beef, I don't know if I like the name more or your question more, but let's just get to the point. This NFL draft for cornerbacks, in my opinion, is going to be the strongest draft class for that position in probably 5 to 6 years. I think we could see 6 to 7 cornerbacks drafted in the first round in this year's draft. At the 23rd overall selection, there are going to be some guys that are going to be taken, and it's going to be tough to move up with only 4 picks. But if these guys fall, these are the 3 guys that I like. Everybody's talking about Emmanuel Forbes, Mississippi State, long, twitchy, can play man-to-man, just a really good instinctual corner. That's a steal if the Vikings get him at 23. Also, Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina, just a phenomenal career. He plays a lot of man-to-man, very quick twitch. The weird thing that stands out to me about him is that he's 6 foot, but a lot of people are saying he's an undersized corner. At 6 foot, that's a really good sized corner, and I think he can make plays in the NFL for years to come. And then last but not least, there's this guy named Kelee Ringo, cornerback from University of Georgia that just won a national championship this past year. He's a guy that played a lot of zone, but also a lot of man, and then he had a phenomenal defensive line for Georgia that, pretty much made him look good, and I guess he made the defensive line look good. I think those 3 guys, in my opinion, could be 3 key major contributors to the Minnesota Vikings if they fall to the 23rd overall selection.
Thanks, Gabe. Always appreciate your insight here on Pick 6. That leads us to our final question, and it's from Big Freak. He asks, what do you think is the most important trait in a player? Well, I am also headed to the Combine next week to cover it for Vikings.com, so I figured I'd switch things up and answer this one myself. Well, Big Freak, I think that if you go back to everything that Kevin O'Connell has said in the last year, it comes down to fit. Whether it's a physical body type fit, whether he fits in the schemes, the new defensive scheme, Coach O'Connell's offense, or if it's a fit in the locker room. Culture and chemistry is super important to this coaching staff. So as long as the fit of the person themselves fits with the physicality and the way that they play the game that fits into the Vikings scheme, I think that guy will be the person that this coaching staff will have their eyes on. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Pick 6. We'll have another one coming at you next week, a special edition from the NFL Combine. So send those questions my way on Twitter @Tatum Everett. For now, here in TCO Studios, we're signing off, but we'll see you again